Hi, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Heron. I am a regional director with GameStop. I cover store operations for all stores throughout the Carolinas, and I'm so excited to be here today for the Women Got Game Who Runs the World panel discussion. And I do want to welcome our panelists today. We have four panelists joining us this afternoon. I'm going to introduce you if you want to wave to everyone. So Shanae Bryant, I will start with you. Welcome. Next, I have Verda Maloney. Hi, welcome. Kim Ellis. Hi, Kim. And I have Christina Amaya. Hi, welcome everyone. And I'm going to give you all a quick moment just to give us an introduction of yourself and your background in the gaming industry. So, Shanae, I will start with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shanae Bryant. My pronouns are she and her. I've been in the game industry for almost 20 years, which always makes me laugh when I think about it. I started off as a tester at EA Sports. So I was testing Madden, NASCAR, NCAA, all the sports titles. I moved into production at Capcom, and at Capcom I was the Devil May Cry producer. I was the Mega Man producer. We shipped some of those. We canceled some of those, as you can see. I've been doing production for the last 14 or 15 years. Worked at a number of places, including mentioned Capcom, Midway, EA Sports, Xbox. Most recently shipped The Outer Worlds with the folks at Obsidian, and Marvel's Avengers with the folks at Crystal Dynamic. As of 3 weeks ago, I am a senior publishing producer over at Oculus. So good to meet everyone. Aside from that, I'll say I am a steering committee for the Women in Games and the Black in Gaming SIGs for the IGDA, and the most recently announced Diverse Game Developers Fund with the IGDA Foundation. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Shanae. Verda, I will turn it over to you. And Verda, I believe you're on mute. All right, so Kim, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everybody, and good morning, and glad to be with you, I guess, this afternoon. My name is Kim Ellis. I have a kind of an interesting path into games, and I'm actually a real estate professional, so that's my subject matter expertise is in real estate. My gaming career goes back to my days at Blockbuster, when Blockbuster, you may remember that brand, and then please check out the Netflix Last Blockbuster. It's a pretty good movie to catch. When we had rented and sold games inside a Blockbuster, and then we had a Game Rush store. We bought a little brand called Rhino Games. 15 years later, I'm now at GameStop and working at that competitor, and I think GameStop actually bought Rhino Games from Blockbuster. So that's kind of my gaming expertise. I come through trying to understand who our customer is. Now at GameStop, who that customer is that we can give and deliver games to, whether that's digital or from the stores. So thank you. I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Verda, are you ready for us?
I don't know, am I?
You are.
Yes, I am Verda. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Black woman in the space. I am a newbie to actually officially being in the game industry. I've been working, co-founded The Gamers now a year and a half, maybe a little bit more than that. And we are a for-profit company meant to elevate, uplift women, femme forward, and identifying humans in the space. And I find myself at the intersection of all of these passions in my life. I am a community builder and a storyteller, and that's what I've done forever. I think it's important to name that because you can have so many roles in the gaming industry. It doesn't have to just be that you are a streamer or that you game. It's so broad and expansive. And so I've spent much of my work doing anti-oppression, anti-racism work, and that's how I find myself being the chief community officer at the Gamers. And really, it's what brought me into the space. It's the community and how to amplify and uplift and ensure that we all have our own tables that are huge and huge and huger. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Verda. And Christina.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
So I am head of events at Team Liquid. So I am one of the three women that are department heads at my company. So that's pretty awesome. I'm also vice chair of the International Game Developers Association, and I am on the board of directors there. And I also run my own non-for-profit called Latinx in Gaming. It exists to help elevate Latinos in the gaming industry so that we also have a seat at the table. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. And welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you all for participating today. I think we're going to have a great conversation and a discussion over the next hour. So, starting off, when I think about the gaming industry and, doing some research, right now, it's estimated that only 43% of gamers are women. And then within that, we have representation of around 27% of females in the gaming industry from a career path standpoint are females. And we look at women of color, we are amongst the least populated and represented demographic within the global gaming industry. So when you think about that, let's talk a little bit about what brought you into the gaming industry, and what are the impacts that you plan to have in the gaming industry. So Verda, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I think I alluded to it a little bit. I would say that community brought me into the space, as well as my children. I'm a mom, and this notion that if you want to see a future that doesn't exist, you got to create it, and that young people have to see us there. And so I think a lot of things would have dissuaded me from doing it. Like, no, well, I'm not a gamer. And I can't really say that because when I think back on my history, actually, gaming has been a really big part of my life, even before I founded the gamers. So those are the things that brought me here. And I think that those statistics are such a mirror of what's happening in the larger world that we actually need to see this overlap happening, right? Because those statistics of women of color, Black, Indigenous, and women of color being able to be in spaces and take up spaces is not happening. And so that's really what I want to do and wanted to collaborate. This panel is blowing my mind that I'm actually able to sit here in conversation with this group of humans. And so I think for me, it was community. And it is, how do we build a community that actually represents all of us and that we all get to be a part of this industry? Because that first stat that we are 40 something percent, like we're literally half of the industry, we're half of the globe. Like, come on, this should not be considered diverse anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to really get into what about us is the diversity, because we are so diverse just within what the label of women is. So,
absolutely. Thank you. Christina.
I want to be a leader in the gaming industry. I want, when you see at the conferences, it's always like Reggie walking out or somebody. I want to be one of those people walking out there. For me, it's really important, not just for like myself, but for little Latina girls to see that there are Latina women out there that are working in the industry. Like when I was growing up, because I've been a gamer my whole life, whenever I watched E3 or whenever I watched shows, white men, white men, white men, there was no diversity on the stage. And so in order to build like a world of diversity, we have to kind of lead it by example. So that's what I want to do. I know it sounds very ambitious, but I'm going for it.
Thank you. You've already accomplished a lot, so thank you. Shanae.
I have so much to talk about with this. And by the way, I just have to go back and say, one of the reasons I love paneling with people, I get to meet so many amazing and awesome people. I get to learn things about folks who I thought I knew. I'm like, oh, really? This is that's awesome. And one of the things that you will see is an overarching just theme of the game industry in general, and folks at home. People come from all over. People have all kinds of different backgrounds, all kinds of different skills. Like there's no one way to get in the industry. I should answer the question though. I apologize. I can talk forever on stuff. How I got in the game industry. I've always wanted to be in the game industry. I've been playing games since I can't even remember. I have a twin sister. She also plays games. What? You're also a twin? Okay. See, I just learned something new about someone. All right, I got to find out if you're the older twin or the younger twin, so that's going to determine whether or not we can actually be friends. But like I've been playing games since the 80s. I've no problem dating myself. I'm 41 years old. I've survived 41 years in America as a Black woman. No problem dating myself. I've been playing games since the 80s. My twin sister's been playing games since the 80s. My dad plays games. He probably plays more games than I do. He's finishing Breath of the Wild for the third time right now. He's 100%ed it twice. So I always wanted to get in the game industry. And I was trying to get in way back when, before there was such thing as a game design degree program. So I sort of was like, okay, how do you get in games? There was no Twitter, there's no Facebook. Like, all of our news and information came from a magazine that you might get once a month. And so I was like, okay, I want to get in games. How do I do this? I guess I have to learn how to code. I guess because that's how you make games, right? Like, the only person in a game development team, there's no team, it's just one person. They design, they code, and then somehow it gets on a store shelf, right? We had a very simplistic understanding of of how games were made back then. So I went in through college. I went through computer and electrical engineering, like majored in college for it. And I was constantly pushing towards it. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then somehow it did. Like I mentioned, I started off as a tester a million years ago and stuff. But I want to return to something Verta said that I think is really important is, I was, stubborn, I guess, which is how I managed to get into the industry. But, as a Black woman in the industry, I think I was working with 350 guys. I was one of 2 women in my department. And I think at our best, we got up to 9 women in our department. We never hit 10 because then they would have been required to give us a second bathroom stall. We never got that second bathroom stall, just as a point. But, one of the reasons I love doing this, besides meeting amazing women and amazing people in this industry, is that I think it's really important to see people who look like you, and to see people who look like me, and see us succeeding and seeing us be awesome in this industry, and find that you can make a career of it, despite the fact that there are challenges. It can be very hard. So.
Thank you, Shanae. Very relatable comments that you made as far as being one or two out of 350 in the room. So we can definitely, I think we can all relate to that. And Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I kind of answered it already and how I come into gaming. But look, I'm a mom. I'm 55 years old. I've got 2 grown children who are gamers, right? And so their gaming needs have been supplied by the company that I work for, I'm happy to say. Because we employ gamers, right? I don't know how many people have had the experience. If you're a true gamer, or if you're buying games for, like my kids, I game, but I'm a bit of a computer gamer, right? More on my laptop. But, if you've gone to let's call it one of our competitors, to buy your games, you got to find the person who's got a key, who may not know anything about the games whatsoever, or platforms. But when you come into GameStop, you actually are talking to someone who loves games. They're probably working at GameStop because they love games, right? And I don't think, listen, we want to be at GameStop. We want to deliver your gaming needs no matter how you want to get them. I don't think anything is ever going to replace, though, walking in, be able to talk to somebody who enjoys the passion that you enjoy. I'll leave that there, but I want to say also that everyone on this panel has had to have, and the audience, if you haven't had the experience yet, you will be the only woman of color in the room. The more successful you are, the more you're the only one there. Till it's a point where I almost don't see it anymore. It's just what the expectation is, right? You're going to be around white, gray-haired, older men colleagues, right? I sit on the board of directors for, I'm a trustee for the International Council of Shopping Centers. It's kind of an honorary position, so I'm really honored to have it. You can't apply for it. Once you're a member for the rest of your life. Which means I sit in meetings for 3 times a year with 300-400 other trustees that have been trustees throughout their entire careers, and only 11 women have ever been active board members. So and only 2 of color. So that is, I think, platforms and conversations like this are what we need to do. And I think that I have a renewed commitment to elevating and being out there so you can see what success looks like. I think that's what we need to do more of, have more examples. And I know I need to do a better job of that. So thank you for letting me have this opportunity.
Okay. Thank you to all of you all. Great comments. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about esports. So esports has really just grown in popularity over the past few years. Technically, if you go back, the first esports event was actually in 1972, but recently it's really kind of taken off. With that, though, it has actually also paved the way for a new pathway for careers for gamers, and specifically women in gaming. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between gaming, the gaming industry, and esports. And from a female college student standpoint, which is what our audience is right now, how can that navigate? How can they navigate through? And what are the benefits that really mean the most to them out of those two different avenues? So starting off with that, Christina, do you want to kick us off with that question?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about that. So I started in game development when I started in the gaming industry, and I helped ship a title, and then I moved to software and hardware, and now I'm at esports. So what I can tell you is the major difference is you are working in entertainment, actually. You are working to kind of provide entertainment value. You're working to kind of uplift your team. It's almost like a very different mindset. I think of it as an event manager, right? When I was an event manager for consumer focused shows for like Stadia, my focus was making sure that all the fans felt engaged with the product. But now that I am an event manager for Team Liquid, right, and head of events at Team Liquid, my focus is not just making sure that the fans are engaged, but that there's this sort of element of like, showmanship, right? Like we're making sure everybody feels like really like engaged with what's happening. They're at a tailgate, they're really excited. And so that was like something major I noticed. Another thing is I'm not a very competitive person, like period. Like when I play video games, I'm usually the one that like I'll play Kirby and Smash and I'll like suck the person up and drop off the map cackling. Like that's who I am, right? So there's a lot of competitive elements to how we interact in esports with the other teams and such. And that was so different for me coming from game dev, where we're all here really to share resources. It's not a bad thing, by the way. It's part of the showmanship. But when you're thinking about a career there, know that like the teams kind of butt heads a little bit, and it's all in good fun for the most part, but expect that when you get in here.
Good insight with esports, and it's more of an experience. It truly is with the tournaments. Okay. Verda, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I'll add is more of a broad picture of how I see it, right? I think of a forest when I think of this, and I say that like the game industry itself is like it is the forest, and that there are all of these. I'm going to use a redwood because I don't know, I'm obsessed with redwoods, but that there are these different trees and different organisms and different systems that operate within, and that I see esports as one of those, right? And so I just think the importance of that analogy for me is that there is so much space for a lot of things to happen within that forest, right? And I think one of the things to share with just those that are listening, that if you love law and gaming, you can actually do that in the game industry, right? You can do that. If you love art, right? If you are just like you love to draw, like you can do that within the game industry. There's space for anything that you love to find a way for your passion to fit into the industry. And that within esports, that's very specific. So you'd have to figure that out. But trust me, like if you love HR and talking to people, there's an HR department there for you. So kind of not seeing it as solely about video games or games, but seeing it as this broader ecosystem. I always say it the wrong way for my daughter. She hates the way I say it. In any event, there's this larger system that you can find your niche within. So that's the bigger thing that I would say.
Yeah, great point, Verda. And you're absolutely right. There's so many different departments and avenues that everyone can fall into, no matter what your specialty is. You have that background in gaming, you love gaming, you could take your specialty and do something that you love within it, which is the true benefit of it. We do have a question that came in that I'll post to the panel. Hafa Sultana, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, asked the question, what are the tips that you all may have to get into human resources within the gaming industry? So kind of like what we just talked about, you have your specialty that you've gone to school for, but you have a love for gaming. Any tips on how you could work your way into the gaming industry within your field of study? And Kim, I know you've been successful with that with your career.
Yeah, I'll try and add. Listen, I think you have to understand what your passion is, right? So if it's HR, if it's real estate, that's my passion, right? What else? You want to find that, right? We don't want jobs. We have to work. But the worst thing you can do is have a job. You want something that you go to work and it feels like fun. I'll tell you this, I've worked at Blockbuster. That was a fun company. It's the entertainment business, right? I've worked at Panda Express. It's food. It's less fun than entertainment. I worked at iFly Indoor Skydiving. That's an experience. That's fun. And GameStop is a lot of fun. It's the entertainment industry. So find, if you're passionate about gaming, then find what your next passion is. For me, it's real estate. If it's HR, then you're going to get your education in HR, and then you're going to target companies that do what your passion is, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, narrowing it down to, gosh, a fun company that's an entertainment company where I can build that brand puts me right into gaming, right? Or iFly, again, all more fun than restaurants. But if your passion's cooking and food, right, then maybe you're gonna go that path. You can get into anything you want to get into, but follow your passion and your heart, and don't just settle for a job.
Mm-hmm. All right, great advice, Kim.
Can I plus one everything that everyone has said here? By the way, it's like that is like just like we said earlier. Like there's so many different roles within games. When I first got in the industry, like I said, I thought it was the person who writes the code and the person who designs it. Marketing, what's that? PR, huh? Like HR, finance. These are things that I have to like know about and care about. Games are massive like projects and stuff like that. Like I remember talking with a few students somewhat recently, and I just asked them the question, hey guys, how much do you think Destiny costs to make? How many people do you think worked on it? And the answer was, I don't know, maybe like $5 million. It was pretty expensive. And I was like, add some zeros, like multiple zeros to the end of it. Like these games are just massive like creatures essentially. And what that really means is there's so many different ways that you can contribute to making a game, to getting in the industry, to being part of that, like that creative space. I also have to go back, by the way, and mention that, Christina, you said you're the person who, as Kirby sucks up characters and jumps off the side. You and I, like, we got to talk now, because as someone who mains Link, that's like my worst nightmare right there, is a Kirby is like sucking me up and dropping him off the side. But the other thing to note about the game industry, and this is one of the things I absolutely love about games, is that it's by nature, it's a creative industry. So, I know I've had like a lot of friends who were like, oh, in order to contribute to the game, I have to be a designer, and I have to be the lead designer, or the dreaded creative director. If you guys haven't heard me do my creative director rant, please join us on Clubhouse one Thursday, and I'm happy to repeat it. No, like the thing is in game development, one of the things I love about it is that everyone is a creative. Like we wouldn't do this. You wouldn't be in game dev and get paid probably 50% less than you get in vanilla tech if you didn't love it. If we didn't have like a specific creative passion to be in that creative space. And I have had folks from all walks of life, from my QA team to my marketing team, my PR team, to my finance folks, my HR folks who get involved in the game development, who participate in play tests, who participate in some of the I guess we do like build reviews, and they have really good ideas, and that's awesome. Like that's one of the places where I think the most creativity comes, is when you get people from lots of different like expertises and backgrounds into a room, and not just have a bunch of designers or creative directors making all the creative decisions, right?
Right, great point. And that's the value as well of diversity, of having more females be a part of gaming, different thought processes. And if you think about the characters, there's been an evolution with the characters as well in gaming. So great comments. So I have an announcement to make. We have another panelist that has just joined us, and I'm really excited to introduce to everyone. We have J. Ann Lopez. Welcome.
Hey everyone.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. A little flustered, but good. I'm good. Think just UK time is different, so apologies about that.
Not a problem. We are glad to have you here with us. Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm Jan Lopez. I'm the founder of Black Dot Gamers. I'm based in the UK. We have around 7,000 women within our community. It is a community-focused organization, and we stream, we do events, we work with business and organizations to consult on what they're doing in terms of their character design, but also my background is in recruitment. So I talk about how to increase Black candidates and candidates of color at the top of funnel for recruitment. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I do that I can't really put in a bundle, but I know so many women on this beautiful panel that I'm just looking at all your beautiful faces. I'm just glad to see you all again as well. So lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you. Welcome. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is, if we think about some of the different programs and initiatives that are coming up. So can you all talk about what are some of the programs and initiatives available or coming up in gaming and in esports that your organization is leading right now, and how will these benefit women of color college students? And Jayanne, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Okay,
kick us off.
Sure. So BGG works in multiple ways. We stream, of course, we make content, so we heighten the visibility of content creators, and been doing that for a long time. And so recently, as you know, a lot of consumer goods brands are entering gaming. So the next step of my interest and the next step of BGG is to actually broker some of these Black women members in our community as talent and get them brand deals. So we've worked with Fortnite, we've worked with Mac, we're working with other organizations as well. We work with charities to get them at the forefront of these hosting and presenting and content creation positions. So I was really glad that I could put a couple grand in one of the BGG's pockets for doing some hosting last year. And that was just the start of doing something really, really great. Just had an activation that BGG has hosted and she's getting paid. So my thing is just to get the money in Black women's hands and pockets. I think that's the main thing for me, because that allows you to have more power in the industry and equity. And that's my lane. There's different lanes for everyone to do some things. And that's one of the lanes that we're working in. And that's the one that I'm most able to talk about right now. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in because I get to work with Chris actually on one of the things that's coming up for us at the Gamers. And I think it connects to a question about getting your foot in the door that was put into the chat, right? And so we're doing a professional boot camp. We'll do a couple of others throughout the course of the year. And it is happening next weekend. And what I would say is, it is actually, we're going to have some amazing panelists and some amazing people. There's even mentor hours if you get on that now, to literally help people that want to think about a career in the industry. And so whether it's that you want to stream, whether you want to go to a leadership role one day, we have some CEOs that are going to be talking about that. And so my advice is, one, go to all the places you love and just really just search, because they're all doing something. And we all know it's Women's History Month, right? So we want this to be like a 365 event, because they really wearing us out this month, right, y'all? Come on, do this. It happens all year. And so one, I would say go do that, because there are lots of other organizations that are doing some really amazing events that are not just about professional, but also just what the industry is about and just learning from different people. And the second thing, what I'll add to that is shoot your shot. Look, there's some people on here that I kind of stalked out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna follow this person. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna talk to this person. I am fangirling out right now, because I'm literally on a panel with some people that I was just watching and seeing what they were doing in the space, and just in complete admiration for that. And so what I would say is do that, right? You're here, you have all of us, find people on LinkedIn, send a message, do those things, and make it thoughtful, right? Don't just be like, hi. Make it thoughtful. Think about what you might want to say. Think about a connection that you have with that person, because our goal is to actually lift others into this, right? And so so our professional boot camp, shoot your shot, go out there. And I know a lot of other people are having things, and Chris can talk more about that, because she knows, she's event planner extraordinaire. That's what I'll say.
Thank you, Berta. Christina, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, actually, so this year I'm doing a total of, between the Gamers and Latinx and Gaming, we're doing 6 professional boot camps. Latinx and Gaming is going to be June 25th and 26th. There's going to be a ton of resume reviews beforehand. There's going to be art portfolio reviews, etc. And we actually are having a virtual career fair for that one in particular. And Riot and Niantic are signed on already. And we're actually in talks with a couple of other companies. So yeah, I'm excited for the one coming up literally next weekend. And I'm excited for the one in June. And we're going to have so many more. I just really want to help young professionals get there, because I remember when I left college, I got so scared that I went back for another degree. And then I tried to leave again and I got another degree. And my parents were just watching and they were like, oh my God. So I know how you're feeling if you're a young college student. Don't worry. Like, we are here to help you. We will help you get your foot in the door.
And Christina, where can they go to find more information about the boot camps as well as the career fair?
So the boot camps is at the Gamehers website.
Okay.
Greta, I think it's, oh no, I'm going to pull it up actually for that one. But for Latinx and gaming, we actually haven't published anything yet. It's going to go live May 1st with an announcement.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Great information. So shifting gears again, I know if I go back to Shanae, you had a comment. You talked about being in a room, 350 men, and it's just one of you, or maybe two if you're lucky, two of you in the room. And, you know, one of the qualities that you talked about was you have to be stubborn sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you personally, I can go back and probably wasn't always a very outgoing person, but as I started to rise in my career, found myself in the same situation. And you have to find your voice. You just have to at some point if you really want to make it. So, you know, when you think about that and you think about the environments that we find ourselves in sometimes as we're growing through our career and doing what we love, have you ever felt a lack of acceptance as a woman in the gaming industry? And how have you overcome those challenges, and what advice would you give?
Oh man, this is remember earlier when I said I could talk, there's certain topics I could talk on. I could just talk through like just all the different examples and all the different like sort of challenges that I've encountered as being, I think there's that concept of not just loneliness, but onlyness, like where you're the only woman in a room, you're the only Black person in a room, and God forbid, the only Black woman in a room, which happens pretty commonly. You know, going back to what I mentioned earlier. Yeah. You know, when I first got in the industry, I was one of two women, 350 men. I've been in the industry, for almost 20 years. Since then, you know, I did this little exercise once because I was really curious. You know, we're you know, starting to see you know, more women. We're starting to see more Black and brown folks, LGBTQIA, like more representation in the industry. It's still small. Let's not think we may reach the mountaintop yet, like by far. I did this exercise because I was curious. You know, how many women I'd worked with in the industry, like how many Black women I'd worked with in the industry. And I think like just like rough numbers, like I've worked with like literally thousands of white men in the industry, you know, having worked at a number of different companies and just external teams and external vendors. I've worked with probably about 40 women in the game industry in the last 20 years, like directly worked with. And I've worked with 5 Black women in the game industry. And one was my twin sister, you know? So, you know, like I said, we have not reached the mountaintop yet by far. And one of the things I found that I had to do, and believe it or not, guys, like I'm an introvert. I absolutely I love doing things like this, or maybe the word is ambivert. I don't remember what the term is, but it ain't extrovert essentially. Right. But, you know, just like what Teresa was saying, you know, one of the things that I had to learn how to do in this industry was to speak out. You know, for like my first 10 years, I would say my first 10 years in the industry, I tried to adapt. I was just like, well, this industry is predominantly white, predominantly male. I guess I got to wear, like I used to wear baseball. You guys wouldn't believe it. I used to wear baseball caps, no jewelry, no makeup, baseball caps, t-shirts every day. Like I'm working on sports games. That's what everyone wears, jerseys. Like that was me attempting to sort of adapt into a space in a really uncomfortable way, because I thought that's how you would succeed. Right. It was just like, how do I make myself smaller and fit in this really comfortable little box where it's comfortable for everyone else? And, you know, I realized probably about 10 years in, it was, you know, we've had a few different nexus points in our industry where we've tried to wake up from, you know, we've tried to get woke or whatever, or recognize that, you know, racism's a thing, sexism's a thing, misogyny is a thing, like transphobia, like all these things are a thing. And I kept hearing the same thing. I kept hearing people say, oh, you know, yeah, sexism exists, but, you know, it's fine here. We're good here. And I heard that so many times. I said, hey, you know, I hear you speaking for me. Would you really like to know? You say you want to know what it's like to be a woman in games. Would you really like to know? Oh, yeah, I definitely want to know. I'm like, are you sure? Because sit down. Yeah, this is not a like, let's just get a cup of coffee and take like 5 minutes kind of thing. Like this is a deep conversation. It's an uncomfortable conversation. But I started having those uncomfortable conversations with people about what my experiences really were, like as a woman, as a Black person, as a Black woman in spaces where I was usually the only one. And they got really uncomfortable. Folks would get really uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable. But you know what I realized at that point was that was important for me, because like all those conversations we were having before where I was pretending that everything was okay were also uncomfortable conversations. They were just only uncomfortable for me. Everyone else in the room was like, oh yeah, no, there's no racism. We're good. We're fine. What racial pay gap? What gender pay? Those aren't real things here. I actually had a manager tell me that once. Oh yeah, the gender pay gap exists, but it doesn't exist here. Very large company. I won't say which one. But yeah, I started to have those uncomfortable conversations, and I started to realize like, okay, that is what I needed to really sort of continue to exist in these spaces, was to be open and honest about those experiences. Now, I can't say that that's always worked in my favor. It's uncomfortable conversations. Some folks don't want to be engaged in that, but it was what was important for me in order to continue doing this. You know, I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of women, especially in the game industry. I always say like the 10-year mark, I think, was where everyone sort of had this reckoning, where we just sort of looked back and said, okay, I've been doing this for a while. It's clearly a career, but is it worth it? And I had a number of women in my life and in my, who were colleagues and friends who were just like, nah, you know what? It's not. Like, one went to like start a daycare, another one to like open a bar. Like, they were just like, I love games, but I can't continue doing this without just with all the stuff that's going on here and stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's really important for people to find the thing that works for them, and just be open and honest with yourself about how you continue to exist in the space.
Right. Great points, Shanae. We have a question that kind of relates to that, if someone wants to take this one. Cherie Edmundo, hope I pronounced your name correctly as well, asked the question, are there any advice for introverts in the industry? So it kind of relates to a little bit of what you said, but really think about the introverts that aren't good at networking, kind of shy away from those types of things. What advice do you all have for them to find their way to weave into the networking arena, into the gaming industry?
I'd like to take that one first of all. I think because everything's so digital right now, I think you can go through you can propel yourself by putting yourself into your work and using that as an example. So if you are a content creator, do you have a media kit where you can show what your quality of your work is? If you are a professional, what's your CV like? And you can connect via email. Like, you don't have to necessarily talk to someone. At some point you will, because obviously that's the basis of our communication, but you can start those seeds without having to be an extrovert, especially now that everything's so digital. Social media is a great tool to use. And you can use that to kind of put yourself out there first and foremost, and make sure your branding is on point. Who you come across online is who you want to look like people want to engage with. And I think that's the first step before you even get to having a conversation, is how you present yourself and how you present your work out there, so that then the conversations become easier. You don't have to sell yourself as much because people already know, or you already have a good reputation out there. I think that's an easy way to kind of lessen the load of being an extrovert and a really overtly confident person, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Right. Kim, anything you want to share on that as well?
I think I would add that introvertness and extrovertness are behaviors, right? They're personality traits. And they come from Myers-Briggs, right? I just did a Myers-Briggs session with my team yesterday. So their gifts differing, right? I am a huge extrovert. Most of the people in the real estate industry are extroverts, and you'll find that there are certain careers that you'll find more introverts than you'll find extroverts. But they're muscles. It's like going to the gym. So I kind of think like introvertness is like, going to the gym and just lifting this arm. You're only going to lift this muscle. You're just going to be more of an introvert if you just go and lift this muscle. You got to work this arm out too, right? So we heard one of our panelists say that she's an introvert. You will not know that from being on this panel today. She's working her other muscle. It's just gifts differing, right? Mm-hmm. So understand what your personality type is. You can find a career that fits your personality type where you're not forced to be an extrovert. but never stop working out the gym at the muscles, the other muscles. You don't have to be nothing's wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with who you are. You can work other muscles to show up in other ways at the right time. So I think look a little into maybe some Myers-Briggs, understand it's a great thing to know yourself. I take MBTIs, and at the time, by the way, the MBTI I took 10 years ago or 2 weeks ago may not be how I would test this very moment, right? And another great tool I'll just drop on you is a EQI, right? Where we all are going to school to be very smart. That's to raise our intelligence level, but our emotional quotient, our emotional levels, and how we conduct ourselves and our behaviors is really critical. So maybe look up Google EQI2 and get to know yourself. It'll show you where you have opportunities to become better. So I'll leave you with that.
I love the way you phrase things. That's perfect.
Yeah, and the Myers-Briggs, that's a great resource. So we have a question, and it's still within the same wheelhouse of thinking about being accepted, right, in the industry. But then the other piece of once you feel comfortable, then you also have to feel that you're credible, and you have to feel that you're getting the respect of your peers within the industry and the environment that you're in. So Casimira actually posed a question to us, and that's in the chat right now, and wants to know, how do the panelists deal with gaining respect in the spaces they're in? She also goes on to say that she feels though is very often she's underestimated due to her background, and doesn't want that to be the thing that holds her back from being as confident as possible. So what advice do we have for Casimira?
First, I will say that you are your superpower. Everything that you think right now that makes you quirky or makes people underestimate you are the things that are your gifts in the world. Nobody can do anything the way that I do it. Nobody can do anything the way that you do it. So first of all, just accept and lean into that, right? That those are your gifts. I think that it is going to happen. Like, it's just sadly the world that we live in, and some of the stats that have already been shared about how few of us, that being Black, Indigenous, and women of color, are in spaces, means that it's going to happen. What has helped me is, one, surrounding myself, not necessarily at my job, but in my life, largely with women that are always giving me the real deal. They're telling me the things that are my strengths. They're telling me, well, Verda, that seems like about right. You need to like beef up on that. So making sure you have honest people with you that are supporting you and uplifting you, not just in your professional career. And then the other thing that I'll add to that is know your stuff. Just do the thing that you do, like it, and you don't have to do everything, right? I know a lot about some things, and I don't know a lot. I don't know even more about others. And then I just bring people on. Like, as I've started, I was a principal of a school. I've done so many things. I bring smarter people into the room than me. Always, because I know the things that are my gifts, right? And so just understand that those are your gifts. And so part of it is filling your cup with people that are always going to be honest with you and let you know that. And with time, it's also a muscle to build, to go into a room and be like, no, this is what I got. This is what I got to bring. And this is dope and amazing. So what are you bringing as well? So those are some of the things. I think that it's practice doing that, and just know, like, lean into your greatness and your uniqueness. Just really lean into that, because it's there.
May I jump in on this one too?
Absolutely.
I'll try and be really succinct and short with this. You said it already. Show up, bring your best all the time, and don't walk into any place thinking that you're disadvantaged because of what you think someone else is going to think of you. You walk in advantaged. You're not disadvantaged because you're Black, because you're anything. You just show up and do great at what you do. I say I am where I am in my career because I was at the right time at the right place with the right talent that was recognized. And screw anyone else who tried to hold me back. I'm good at what I do. I'm darn good at what I do. And no one can tell me that I'm not. I'll go to the next place and be greater there then, right? But I never walk into a room. I don't care how many white men are there, thinking I'm disadvantaged because I'm a woman or a Black woman, ever. I just show up and do my work and do great work as the best that I can offer, right? To deliver the results to my company.
If I can add one more thing on there too, because I think we've all had this experience, right? Like we know terms like imposter syndrome. Another term I learned recently that really like helped me understand the experience I was having was stereotype threat as well, which if you're not familiar with that term, it's this concept of like, hey, this additional sort of just stress that is always on often folks from marginalized backgrounds where they're basically looked at as the representative of every other person from their background. So if you're the only woman in a room, well, you represent all women. So hope you don't screw up. And that's the additional stress for that, which we've all experienced. But the thing I think is also really important, and I'm going to totally shout out Michelle Obama for this because she talks about this in her book Belonging, is that, or Becoming rather, I should say, is that, oftentimes we walk into these spaces and a lot of times the imposter syndrome that hits us is because we feel like we're not supposed to be there. And then there's all these smart guys that are there and they must have worked so hard. She said, I've been in rooms with CEOs, with world leaders, with like all these really, really rich, really famous, really, really powerful men. And she said, they're not that smart. And that to me, like, that's not to insult them. That's to say, like, we're all human. And that's the thing for me. Like, I always have to remind myself, hey, we're all, like, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. I'm here because, like Kim said, I'm effing good at my job. I'm supposed to be here. So you have to always, like, remind yourself of that and understand that everybody has that experience. Black and brown folks and women and LGBTQIA and disabled folks probably experience it a little bit more because of systemic oppression, but know that you're supposed to be there. Don't ever question yourself. Question everyone else, if anything else.
One thing I'd love to add is that you mentioned imposter syndrome, and my friend Chanel has a really great way that I use when I have it, and she said, "You're not an imposter. You're an evil genius that has tricked everyone in the room." And it literally boosts my confidence anytime I'm in a room and I feel like I've got imposter syndrome. I'm like, nah, I'm an evil genius. I'm amazing. Like, they don't know nothing. Like, that's how I walk into the room. And one thing I would say to people is that because I don't have a CV in gaming, right? Gaming was my hobby, and then I created a platform and created a movement kind of thing. If I shrink myself, what is going to change? Nothing is going to change. So the only option I actually have is to stand up in this space. I may be right, I may be wrong, but the only option I have right now, if I want what I say I'm wanting, if I want that change, if I want Black women at the forefront of things, the only thing I can do right now is to stand up in that cause and in what I'm saying and in what I'm doing. The shrinking myself only serves their purpose and only serves the status quo. It doesn't help anyone else but them. And I don't want to help them. I had to gain this is the one thing that I've had to do is take respect. I haven't had really this kind of company, worked in a company or anything. Everything I've done, I've had to lambast people on social media. I've had to point out the fact that no Black female characters were in games. I've had to point out the missing intersections when it comes to different representations of Black women. And I've had to do that. And by the fact that I have now social numbers and I've done talks and all this workshops and consulting, that's how I've gained the respect. But it doesn't immediately come. I always say that so this year, some of myself and other members of Black Girl Gamers were in Times Square in New York on billboards thanks to Twitch. And one thing I remember is that I was ignored back in the day by the very same platform. And that's not to lambast them or turn them down or anything. But at the same time, it's like from ignored to billboards. And that's how it happens. It's always a journey. It's never going to be, you're walking to the room from day one and you're respected. You kind of do have to earn it. You have to, like First said, you have to know your stuff. You have to push yourself out there. And you have to understand that shrinking yourself is not always going to serve you.
Exactly what she's saying. Like when Latinx in gaming started, no doors were open for us. We had to shove our way in, and we had to prove that there was a reason for us to be there too, right? Like we had to put our money where our mouth is, pretty much. And I will say too that there are going to be people that just won't respect you, and they're not really worth your time, right? Like I get feedback sometimes of like, oh, you know what, you're a little bit too aggressive, or you're a little bit too this, or a little bit too that. Cool. Is it actually constructive feedback? No. Is being called aggressive important to me? No. I'm saying my point. I'm saying it with passion. And you know what? If you can't handle that I'm correcting you or I'm telling you that something is wrong, that's your problem. I will say that good constructive feedback is of course taken, but for the most part, if you're going to tell me that I'm saying something incorrectly like that in that sort of tone, it's not going to be taken. So it's good to try to earn respect. And I agree with Jayan on that one. But remember, there's some things that people say to you that you just don't need to listen to.
Great discussion, great conversation. The ladies, right now, what I would like to do is shift gears a little bit. And I want to talk about a topic that is probably a little controversial, however, maybe a little sensitive, however, is absolutely necessary that we discuss it. And if you go back to the summer of 2020, a lot of the racial tension that has already existed for decades in our nation was heightened last summer through a lot of different events and situations that happened, many of them dealing with women of color. So if you think back to that, how those incidents affected what both you and your organization are doing to impact and measure change.
Okay, I'll start. So I think two things happened last year. I think everyone was locked up in like at home. So everyone was more online than usual. And then also obviously the incidents happened and obviously police brutality and all that stuff happened, which has been happening everywhere for a long time. But I think it drew more attention to the fact of the kind of racial disparity within gaming. And then platforms like mine and platforms like Christina's will definitely get that kind of attention now, because you got two of these incidents colliding and two of these worlds colliding. And I will say the attention has been received well. BGG's done very well because of it. And we've definitely, at the same time that these incidents were happening, we're doing our Black Girl Gamers online summit. And it was just really nice to kind of provide a respite for Black people in gaming. But I will say that there was also a lot of performative action during this time. And I think organizations are trying to make change, but I'm not sure how much they're still listening and in thinking about how they implement that change. I think, as much as I talk about characters on screen, we need to talk about the people behind the screen, people making these games. Yeah, what are the culture in your organization? And I think there's a lot of weeding to do in these companies that still, which obviously we saw with a lot of companies last year as well, being raised to the forefront. But I think, it's going to take a long journey before that happens. I still don't think, like we said earlier, I don't think the work's completely being done or even strategized well around it, including people like us in the room to talk about those strategies. They're just trying to fix it with a Band-Aid, and gaming reflects the world. That's not going to happen with that thus far. And we just received a lot of vitriol for the last 2 to 3 weeks for calling out someone, and things haven't really changed too much, to be honest with you.
Just plus one on everything that Jayan said a second ago. Last summer was really hard. And sorry, Verda, I saw you also unmuted too. We definitely need to talk. Last summer was really hard. It was really hard. The thing that Jayan said that I also agree with is, I had so many of my white allies who came to me and they just said, Shanae, it's gotten so bad. It's so, when did it get this bad? And it was such a uncomfortable conversation for them, especially those folks who think of themselves being really progressive, to say, hey, it's always been this bad. I don't know how else to say this to you, but now you have to see it. And you see it, and you're seeing it because global pandemic, we're all locked up in our houses. You can't look away. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't go to brunch. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't have all those distractions in our lives that allow us to sort of look away from the bad stuff. And the bad stuff was there. Like George Floyd's murder was right up in front and center with everyone. And so suddenly, like my well-meaning white allies were reaching out and saying, what do I do? And so I talked about stereotype threat before, like there was this additional sort of weight as Black and brown folks. We're trying to figure out how to get through this ourselves. And then suddenly I've got friends from high school and people I haven't talked to for 10 years talking about, Shanae, what should I do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know you anymore. So I think it was really challenging for us, as a community for Black and brown folks. It was really continuously challenging for white allies as well. I do a webcomic called Terrible Allies that specifically had a comic about this, of just like, yo, I know that you feel like you want to reach out to a Black person and tell a Black person, hey, I see you, you're valued. Just hold up, like, just be thoughtful about this. Like, this allyship isn't always about like centering yourself and centering your feelings. And there was a lot of centering of white feelings last summer, even in the midst of a lot of Black pain. And especially for companies as well. Companies, I appreciate it, because I said this was one of those nexus points, those lynch points, where companies were trying to, like, they finally felt comfortable saying Black Lives Matter, after so many years of that being like just a toxic phrase, and they just avoided it like crazy. Everyone did their white text on Black background JPEGs, and then like nothing else, right? And I think it presents an opportunity. It's like, I worked at one of those companies too that said, hey, we're doing our white text on black background, Black Lives Matter. Cool. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, y'all, we're about a year removed from this. What have you done besides that? Like, you said we matter. You said you support us. Let's talk about that support, and in actual action, not just words. Bert, I'm going to hand off to you too. I know you got lots of stuff to say on it.
I'm trying to contain it. And I'm not going to try to contain it. I think that the first thing I'll say is that I know I was divinely built for this moment, because Black women have been envisioning futures that don't exist since the beginning of time. So we are in this moment, right? And there's a lot of mirroring that's happening in the world and in the gaming industry. And coming from having done this for so much of my life, the gaming industry is like way, way behind. Okay? Way, way behind.
That part.
Because diversity, equity, inclusion, a workshop, a hashtag, all those things they're yesterday. And the statement that you just made about what are you actually doing, because you can't trick people with a statement anymore. And what I'm going to say is, you can't trick Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who's out there listening to this right now, because one, they will drag you for filth. I am here for Black Twitter. I'm here for all of the stuff that they do. Do it, please, and hold people accountable, because that's something like the platforms and the digital space that exists now didn't exist when I was picketing with a picket sign in like 1986. Date myself. I was actually born the year of the very first esports event that somebody mentioned. Yes. So, this opportunity that we have is because we are connected globally now. And so when these incidents and when these atrocities and murders and systemic violence against Black and brown bodies happened in the past, it wasn't until a newspaper article came out about it that I might find out that this thing happened in this state or in this city or in this country. But now instantly it's there. And that is a way to hold people accountable. And what I think the world is actually learning from the gaming industry is that connection that is digital is actually extremely important and has been happening in the gaming space for forever. It's not new, right? But what we're seeing is a moment where everybody is kind of getting on board with the fact that there's something here that we can do. And so I'm really intrigued and interested in what the future of this space means, what the future of actually being fully inclusive and having an anti-oppressive world would be, and have shifted from thinking that that's not possible in my lifetime to knowing that it is possible in my lifetime because of this conversation. And when you shift and think that it is possible, then it makes you think of different connections and different ways of being. So that's what I'm going to say right now. It's a lot more I could say, but I'm going to leave it right there.
So great comments about dealing with the incidents that happened. A lot of you all talked about, though, the need for change. We haven't necessarily gotten there yet. There's been a start and a conversation, but there hasn't been the action to follow through with that. So for those, young women out here, especially our audience, college students, that they want to invoke change. They want to be the ones to say, hey, we made the change, we made it happen. I can enter into an organization and feel confident that I can wave my flag and make the change. What advice do you give them to make that happen?
How do I phrase this? I think it's knowing your why. And what lane that falls in, because not everyone can do everything. The reason why we're all on this panel, because we're all doing different work, but it's all needed and necessary. And I think knowing your why is what holds you to your cause and your drive so much more than any kind of tangible physical goal. Yes, visualize. Yes, have the ideas of what you want in your head, but knowing your why will carry you there. If you have a vision and you have no why, you're not going to reach that goal. That's not going to happen. You're not going to think intuitively enough. You're not going to think creatively enough to think outside of the already path model. And that's one thing from my perspective, that there wasn't really, I think Latinx and BTG came up at the same time. So we were kind of like pathing our own paths in this space. We didn't really have like this kind of structure to follow, but we had our why, and the why's brought us to this point. So having a why and knowing that you always need to be learning. I'm constantly reading books. That's one thing that I think many of us forget right now. There are so many books about change, mindset, goal setting, being flexible, thinking outside of the box. Those are the greatest books that you'll have, and I think you should definitely have them in your life. So knowing your why, and also knowing that you don't know everything and that you can always be learning, I think that will give you the confidence to show up in spaces where you don't feel like you're the best, but that means you're going to learn something and you can take it back to your platform or your business or your career. I think sometimes showing up willing to learn is also the best kind of confidence you can have.
Yes, books. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I want to recommend books because books have helped change. Like I read at least 2 books a month at minimum, if not more, because perspective outside of yourself is so important. So I would recommend, if you're a leader, if you want to be a leader, Radical Candor. That one's a great book on how to learn more about yourself. The Upside of Stress, because Berta knows this, I'm a stress ball. So it's really nice. It's really nice to have a book that helps me reframe and refocus my stress. And then there's a book by a woman named Jenny called You're a Badass. And I went through like a really bad breakup, and that book really helped me kind of like remember who I am. And so agreed, books are amazing.
I totally need to pick up a book called The Upside of Stress. Let me tell you, they should hand that out as soon as you get your first game job. They should be like, "Hi, here's your paycheck, and here's your copy of this book that tells you how to deal with stress." No, but like everything that everyone said here, and I cannot plus one enough the idea of like educating yourself about this, not only for Black and brown folks, but especially for folks who are aspiring allies in this space. I hate the label allies. I know that this is probably a common thing, because oftentimes people say, "Well, you know what? I don't believe, I think racism's wrong and sexism's wrong and homophobia is wrong and transphobia is wrong. I'm an ally. There, I'm done. Cool. I'm an ally. Anything I say is okay. I can't say anything bad because I'm an ally."
Yeah.
And so I always reframe it like this. I tell people, I'm like, ally is not a destination. It's a direction. You're always going to be learning. And you need to be learning not just of your own big brain. Build on the knowledge of people who came before you, because trust, this battle didn't just start with George Floyd. It didn't just start with the folks in Atlanta who were like gunned down just a few days ago. Like, this has been a long going battle. And there's a lot of really good information out there that we all need to understand, like the sources of white supremacy and how that really impacts our lives, in like Black and brown folks' lives, but everyone's life, day in and day out, how it structures the types of products that get made, how it structures the types of characters that appear in games and stuff as well. It's such a big conversation, and I think that the single biggest thing that folks can do is educate themselves, and then also find out where you can apply your time and talents. We can't all be out there on the picket lines or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a part of the fight. It doesn't mean that you can't be anti-racist, not just non-racist. Understand, anti-racist is active. Non-racist is just like, well, racism's bad. Cool. I'm just going to go, consume all this racist media uncritically, right? So find ways you can do that. And, sure, give money too if you can, right? Give money to those groups that are actually out there on the front lines, because they can use it, because it's hard work. Like when we talk about do the work, the important part in that line, like one of the most important words in that sentence is it's work. It is not free. It should be compensated, and it is expensive, both actual like money expensive and emotionally expensive. So, that's the stuff that folks need to understand as they get into
100%. Okay. Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of different roles within change, right? Sometimes you're in the front line, right in front of everyone. Sometimes the important role is behind the scenes. You're the one writing the script for the change. And that is just as important as being out on the front line as well. And so next question that I have for you all, what are your thoughts on where women of color are right now in the gaming industry, and what can be done to support women? in their success as they launch their career into the gaming industry.
Hire us, pay us. That's the thing I always say. Like when companies are like, "How can I support women of color or folks from marginal?" Hire us, pay us money, like not just an exposure, like actual money that lets me like pay my bills.
And hire us for senior leadership roles.
Yes,
we don't need to be entry level.
Other than diversity officer, also.
Amen. And don't tokenize. So I think that's something that's been really interesting. And I made kind of a funny about Women's History Month, and there's kind of like a little circuit of people that you're going to see. And it's like, oh, look, my company is doing these really great things. I'm pushing and propelling these women out there. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, peel back the layers, that there are not that many, right? There are not that many women. There are not that many women of color. And are they getting paid for the things that they're doing, right? And so really, I think that's really vital. And don't see it as taking out of anyone's pocket, right? This scarcity model, first of all, there's billions of dollars floating in the billions, okay? So don't think that asking for what you're worth and do your research to find out about that. And one of the things that I say a lot to women is that we have to share that information with each other, because we're kind of shrouded in not really understanding and knowing, and that there's such a varied thing. I like literally just saw this spreadsheet that talked about like what like community managers make, and it was crazy when you break it down for race. I was like, well, how's the range this huge? How's somebody making $30,000 and somebody's making $150,000? Like, what is going on here for the same thing? And so those things need to start being exposed. And I just really challenge you. And I would say, and this is something that I have learned, my best friend, she works in HR and has worked in really huge companies, has really pushed me to say, whatever number they put on that table is less than what they can pay you. It is always less, because they're looking after their bottom line. Right. And they know, particularly that women are not, we don't negotiate. So always negotiate. But don't just know that whatever number is on that table is less than what they can afford to give you. And that is going to be my advice. So just always know that. And I wish I had known that really young, because I didn't realize that. I didn't know that things were just negotiable. Sometimes I just thought like, look, I'm first generation American. I was like, oh gosh, I got this job. I got some benefits. Woo. I made it, Mom. And I didn't ask any questions. I didn't say like, well, what else can you offer me? Or to like kind of know what the comparables were. So I don't know if I answered the question, but one of the things I want to put out there is for us to know that, because I didn't know that.
My rule of thumb when I'm doing negotiation is like, if the number you're asking for is not a little bit scary, add 10%.
Yeah.
Like,
and
that's
remember,
simple.
right? I mean, it actually is called a job offer. It's an offer because you're supposed to negotiate it, right? And she's right. You're exactly right, Britta. I mean, it is the lowest number.
It is.
Right?
And they made it. You said this. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. Sorry. You had said something before that.
No, just go back. Ask for more. Ask for your worth. A great boss told me one time. Now, my company might not want to hear this, but it was great advice, so I'm going to give it. Whether you're looking for a job or not, you should interview at least once a year so you understand what your marketability is and what your going rate is. Because the longer you stay at a company, the truth is, the people that they're bringing in after you, they're probably going to make more than you. You want the tenure, and they should pay you for that, right? But if you don't move and check what your market rate is out there, you could stay at a company and not make as much as your value is worth on the street.
And I just wanted to connect it to what you said before about knowing that they made the offer for a reason. They want you. They want the skill set that you have. And you were just talking about walking into a room, Kim, before about like, you are at an advantage. They made that offer. And it wasn't always in my life, and definitely not when I left college, that I realized that that's what that means. They made that job offer to me for a reason.
I think I would love to add as well. I think the question was about how to support, and we're talking about companies right now. So I feel like if you are someone who quote unquote calls himself an ally, prove it by speaking to Black women and helping them internally and supporting them internally, and, you know, working with them to achieve what they want to do internally. So if they need a project that they want to work with, or they need something that is going to bring awareness to Black Lives Matter or Black History Month, and they need that support, you need to be someone that is supporting them. You can't just be friends. Like, again, that's just being non-racist. If you really want to improve the change and improve the quality of life of women of color in companies, you need to be supporting them in their endeavors. It needs to be active support, you know, and I think that's something that a lot of people miss. You know, I did a panel one time, and I said to the panelists, guests, like, so how do you support Black women in your company personally? And, you know, it's like, they had great answers. No, I'm not going to shade them at all. They had great answers. But if you ask many people, other than, oh, yeah, we talk from then to then, they're not doing the work. You're not really an ally then. You're just someone who is a colleague. That's it. So if you do want to be an ally and support women of color, then do, like we said, do the work, support the women of color in the company, help them achieve what they need. If you know potentially that they should be interviewing once per year, give them that advice. You know, that's the greatest thing. Like, give them tools, help them. Not to say that they need it, but just make sure you're looking out for them in that way too.
Great points. And I'll tell you, one of the things that stood out to me was making sure that you feel valued where you're at. Going back to the table and making sure that it's understood that this is what you bring to the table. This is your experience. And I think one of the most important parts about being successful in your career is being valued. It's a really great point. We're going to transition. We have a question from one of our students, Imani Daniels.
I'm Imani Daniels. I'm a junior at Kennesaw State University, and I major in cybersecurity. As a woman of color in the gaming industry, I'm sure you've had your fair share of challenges. What was your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, she was so cute.
And Sean, I'm going to ask you if you could post that question for us. Yeah. And Sean's going to post that for us on the screen.
Well, the question was what was as a woman of color, what is your biggest challenge?
What are some of your biggest challenges?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jan. Didn't cut you off.
It's all right. I think how I overcome my biggest challenges is the same thing as before. It's educating myself. So I like knowing that as someone who is fronting an organization like Black Girl Gamers, and they're going to have people coming after you for like years to come, because I'm trying to do something that takes away their perceived power, right? So one thing that I have to do is know, okay, as an organization, what insurances do we need to have in place? Like, how do I support myself to feel comfortable in what I'm saying? So if someone comes towards me, I have insurance to help me out. Like, education and putting in these kind of safety barriers for yourself and safety nets is so key, because not everyone has your back, and that's something you might have to accept at some point. You know, you're going to have to rely on you a lot of the time, and luckily there are women in the panel who are going to help you and reach out, but at the time there will be times where you feel like your lane is slightly different, or you might feel alone. So it's also good to have areas where you feel like you can know things and help yourself support yourself through these times. So I know, like, as BGG, if I'm going to be getting people as freelancers, I have indemnity insurance, a public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance. These are things that you should know if you're going to go into the industry as a business or as a content creator, that you should have actual public liability insurance, because if you do something wrong with a brand and they want to come towards you, you have insurance to help you out with that. A lot of content creators don't know that, and I think it's really, really important to just know what you need as a person going out to support yourself and make your life easier.
I think that my biggest challenge, this is a really interesting question, because, you know, your challenges change throughout the course of your career, right? And you have the problems I had to solve when I first got in the industry were just like, hey, is this bug still in the database? Has anyone else found it? How do I write it up successfully so it can be reproed? Versus, you know, some of the problems I'm solving now are on a multi-million-dollar level. But I think the biggest challenge I had, you know, I mentioned earlier that I'm an introvert. It was first of all, figuring out how does an introvert operate in a space where I need to talk to people all the time, and get people to talk to each other and stuff as well. But also, for as far as my career is concerned, networking. networking was really, really hard for me because I would walk into a space like, GDC or something. I'm like, okay, it's time to network. I'm at a mixer. All right, here are my business cards. Give me a job. Here's my business card. Can you give me like, it was so structured. And I didn't know what was expected of me. And it was so uncomfortable because it was, I'm walking into spaces where they're not spaces I'm comfortable in. And I'm being asked to do an uncomfortable thing. And it was, I hated it. I absolutely hated networking. But I had a really good mentor who helped me think about mentoring or thinking about networking in a completely different way, which is number one, networking is just talking with people. It's just having a conversation. And that conversation doesn't have to have a definitive endpoint. I think that's the critical thing. A lot of times we go into networking and we think this is a transactional thing. Okay, I'm talking to Verta because Verta, I would like you to give me something for the thing can we exchange? Right. And that makes it transactional. It makes it not very awesome for the person that you're talking to either. So I started just thinking of it as as opposed to it being explicit networking, it's just talking to folks. It's just getting to know folks. Sure, maybe there can be some business related or transactional thing that can happen down the line. But the best connections I've had in my career didn't start off with me trying to get something out of someone. And those are the ones that have really lasted and the ones that have been long running. So once you can really wrap your head around networking that way, it becomes so much easier and it becomes so much more effective. And I feel like I'm better at it now.
That networking piece really resonates with me. And the thing that I've had to do, it's connected to my biggest challenge, which is being my full authentic self in spaces. And so, and without unapologetically so. And so how I was brought up, one, I told you I'm first generation, my family's from the island. So there's a whole way of just being in the world that I'm taught. I was born in 1972, so Black girl magic did not exist for this dark-skinned Black girl way back when, right? And so that was definitely, it was not a plus. And so that was a challenge for me because showing up as this Black woman in a space was always perceived as a threat. Chris mentioned tone. Why are you so angry? Well, one, because I should be, but two, that's on you. But I didn't really know that to begin with, right? And so the networking piece, is leaning into how we network as women is indigenous to us. We don't have to do it the way that men do. And sometimes the systems is set up for a very male dominated perspective of how work and how existing is supposed to happen. And we don't have to ascribe to that. And being my full authentic self meant that I love connecting with people. I love being a champion and cheerleader. It's not a competition because it's not a scarcity model. What I got, there's space for me. There's space for all of you. It's just not that. However, that's what I was taught. And then the other thing was just being unapologetically Verta. I'm quirky. I speak English the way that I do. Sometimes I code switch and I do it at work and I do all those things, but I am not holding that back anymore. So if I make a reference in a room and people don't get it, Google it. Just like if I don't get a reference, right, you gonna Google that. I'm gonna make sure that I get to be who I am. And so how I overcame that connects to having people around me that support me and say, Verta, you can do this. And it's just knowing my stuff. So I study books, podcasts, all of that. I am always trying to get better and I change and I pivot and I accept when someone tells me that I messed up, I say sorry. Right. And so those are the things or how I've overcome them. I think that, I'm going to keep it there because I know that we are going to end soon. I want everyone to be able to share too.
Absolutely. Christina, anything you'd like to share?
You know what? I will say failure as well, learning to accept when I fail, learning how to gracefully apologize and stuff. When I first started in the industry and I would mess up, I'd be like, oh, whatever, screw you, kind of attitude. And it wasn't helpful, right? It wasn't helpful to me. I wasn't learning. I wasn't getting feedback. I wasn't taking stuff in. So learning that it's okay to mess up, things happen, etc. It's not, at the edge of a knife all the time, but also learning how to apologize to people and to acknowledge their feelings. And also learning how to be a sympathetic coworker, learning how to hey, if they mess up, you don't have to be upset. You guys can talk through it. That's taken some time, just because I came into the workforce, an only child, kind of grew up pretty alone. So learning all of that stuff definitely was one of the challenges I needed to overcome, but I'm really glad I have.
And Kim, what do you have to add?
I am just so honored to be on this panel with this confident group of women. It's really amazing. I don't think I have anything more to add, except that this is a confident group of women, and we've worked through our careers, and we're talking to, we're talking to some younger folks who are going to be us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll get to this confidence level, right? But you'll have to take the advice of all of these smart women, what they told you about learning, right? So when you're out of college, you're not done learning. You've heard all of us talk about how we're still reading books. We're still educating ourselves. We're educating ourselves not only through those books, through mistakes, as Christina said, right? We've made them, and we've gained confidence and education and experience through all of our journeys and our challenges. So you have a long road ahead of you with that. And I hope I sit on a panel with some of the people who sat on this call. But I don't have anything else to add. Just keep growing and learning and knowing yourself. I think Verda said it right, and unapologetically.
I love the way Kim speaks. I love the way Kim speaks. It's so amazing. It's so great. You encapsulate everything just so nice. It's like it's got a bow.
Does this panel really have to end? Can we just do this for
I know, right?
Can we just keep going, y'all?
After the party, there's the after party.
Right? I mean, LinkedIn, right? It is a great tool, and you can even go, there's some books and some things you can Google on how to best use LinkedIn for networking. Yeah. It's not only what you know, it's who you know. And here are panelists that I promise if you send me a LinkedIn invitation, I'll accept it. That's how we get to know each other and can help each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One other thing I would just note too, a lot of we've been talking a lot through a lot of the challenges that we've experienced as women of color, of Black and brown folks, and at various different intersections of the industry. But note, we're still here. Right. We're still doing it, so I what I don't want folks to walk away from this is take away from this is thinking, man, the game industry is super messed up. I shouldn't even I shouldn't even bother. It's going to be too messed up. I don't fault anyone who chooses something else. I don't fault anyone who leaves the game industry. But what I can say is that we're here and, we're making you can have a career in games. You can have a really successful and really really engaging and really fulfilling career in this industry. You just have to know how to navigate it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, ladies, we are at the end of our session, believe it or not. And again, it has been amazing to just be a part of this panel and just listen to the conversation. So thank you all. One of the things that I'll say is that, when I looked at your bios in preparation for today, I will tell you, I was just in awe of your experience, of your contributions, your accomplishments, and just the fact that you all each have the courage to step out and go after what you love and what you believe in. And I believe as women of color, one of the most important tasks that we have in our lives is to pay it forward and mentor and help and support others that want to follow in our footsteps so they feel encouraged to do the same. So thank you all for taking out the time today to share your experiences, to answer some of the questions with this discussion. I'm sure our audience has taken a lot away from this today. There were a few other questions that came across chat that we did not get to. So I don't know, Keisha, I think you'll let us know if they'll still be up in the chat where maybe we could go in and respond to those later today. We'd love to do that. But again, thank you. Great discussion, great getting to know each of you all. And thank you again for your participation today.
Wow, what a way to start Who Runs the World. Thank you so much, ladies. You've been absolutely amazing. Teresa, Shauna, Verda, Jayanne, Kim, and Christina. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So amazing. I love all the super women of color power that rock today and representing worldwide and all of our beauty and hues. I so appreciate you. More importantly, our intellect and knowledge. And you all live in your space and you're not ashamed of what you are. And more importantly, you rock the talent that you own and deserve. And I'm so excited to start the day off this way. And I hope all the ladies who joined, all the amazing questions, have taken something away from the day. I appreciate so your time on a Saturday. Don't know what we would have done without you all starting us off today. I can't wait. And I hope you'll join us again next year. We're going to take this on tour. And we'll be able to touch and see and meet each other live, God willing. I'm vaccinated. Get vaccinated, please, so we can all be healthy, safe, and connected next year. Thank you so much. And until next time, I appreciate you ladies. Thank you, GameStop.